Ex-cons. What was the hardest habit to break after release? Story 1. Not me personally, but I know a guy that said after he got out he just wanted McDonald's. When he got there, he spent 20 minutes staring at the menu trying to decide what to order because he wasn't used to having choices. Story 2. Staring at sharp things. Like there's no desire to use them inappropriately, but you're just kinda shocked that they're there and available to use. You might be surprised what qualifies as a sharp object. I remember whenever someone tried to hand me a knife or something to cut veggies, I'd be afraid to touch it. Glass was the biggest thing though. Just mirrors in all the bathrooms. Real ones. I could smash that shit and have a big jagged weapon. I can't believe this Italian restaurant has such a dangerous thing in their bathroom. Stopping thinking of objects as weapons is hard. Story 3. One of my foster sons came to us from juvie. Every meal, his arm was around his plate and he woofed down his food. My mastiff couldn't keep up. He always ate back to the wall, hunched. Took my wife and I a month to show him no one would take his food, and we had plenty more. Funny part is, he went in the Marines and did 8 years. Got out honorable and is now working in corrections. Story 4. Not wearing shoes in the shower, eating with forks and knives, having salt and pepper for food, not always having to watch your back, being able to get food when you want it, and just get up and leave to go for a drive or something. Story 5. I don't smoke, but every time someone offered me a cig, I would pocket it. On the inside, that's a bartering chip. Took me about a month or two to break. Story 6. Hoard feminine hygiene products. We were super limited on the number of pads or tampons they gave us. They didn't give any to the women in holding cells. There was dried and fresh menstrual blood on the floor and concrete benches, and a drain in the middle of the rooms like they intended to hose down the room. But if they did, it was not often enough. Story 7. I eat fast. I don't sit with my back to the door in public. I always scan crowds constantly. I question why people are nice to me. I carry extra clothes, water, and various other things in my car in case I need it. Not a hoarder, but harder to get rid of stuff. I don't like being away from home overnight. I also quit eating boiled eggs. I overseason my food, and I refuse to drink Kool-Aid anymore. Story 8. Constantly looking over my shoulder. By far the hardest conditioning to break, which I haven't and I doubt I ever will, is the constant pessimism and cautious optimism. You see, when you're waiting to work your way through court, get a deal, and get sentenced, you will have your dates changed 50 times, hoping for certain things only to be disappointed. And any time you are told something hopeful, it doesn't work out. As a result, I never get excited for something until it actually happens. When my wife told me we were pregnant, I already knew from her symptoms that she was, but still, you never know for sure until you take the test. I was obviously happy, but because I'm always cautiously optimistic and rarely show emotion, I couldn't feel comfortable or excited until I knew that my developing daughter was healthy. Even then, it didn't really hit me till she was born. You can apply this to anything, especially big events, getting engaged, planning the wedding, buying a house, anything. I still hear from my wife how I wasn't crazy surprised or excited to be having a kid. I was. I actually was the half of the relationship who was dead set on a kid when my wife supposedly could have gone either way. You just can't get your hopes up or look forward to anything until it is here or has happened. I've been home over 7 years now and with my wife for 6.5. She's truly the catalyst that motivated me to truly change my life and to not give any more of my life to the system. But she'll never know how happy she makes me because she misinterprets my cautious optimism and realism for pessimism or indifference. Story 9. I did almost 7 years. Been out 2 years. I'm 35 from Wisconsin. Wisconsin has a law called truth in sentencing. You do 100% of your time. There are multiple head counts where the guards make sure that all of the inmates are accounted for every morning at 5 a.m. I felt like I was doing something wrong if I slept past 5 a.m. It took me almost 6 months before I slept past 5. Even now, 6 a.m. is sleeping in for me. It has allowed me to never be late to work and show up every day. I was a drug dealer with no work ethic, and I slept in until noon. Ironically, I'm more successful than I ever thought I would be because of this habit. I actually just got poached by another company who offered me a 150% salary increase. Nice to see you, new tax bracket. In 2 years, I've become a model parolee. My life is great. I married my wife last September. I go to therapy for a multitude of conditions that manifested while I was a guest of the state. I was diagnosed with general and social anxiety disorder and PTSD. I was out for a few months and I had a panic attack. I had no idea what was happening to me. I was literally paralyzed and afraid. I thought prison ruined me. It made me a better person in general. I am not praising Wisconsin DOC by any means. The guards dehumanized the inmates and treated us like pure garbage with no hope. They always told me, "You'll be back." I won't be back. People that go back produce job security. They want people to come back, so they do what they can to steal your dreams. I changed myself. Prison allowed me to step back and really look at my life. I saw who I hurt, I saw who was there for me, I saw who abandoned me. I became focused on change after my 3rd year. I contemplated suicide because I wasn't even half done with my sentence. After I seriously thought about hanging my life up, I committed myself to being the best human being I could be. I revolted by behaving, teaching myself things, and being positive. My life is now amazing. I'm surrounded by people who love me and support me. All of the ex-cons reading this, and people just interested in this thread, that label is bullshit. We are human beings with feelings. We can change. Stay positive and stay hopeful. Never give up. All of my fellow Redditors, one love. Story 10. My best friend did 6 years in prison. I did 8 in the military. We concluded that the wire on his fence was to keep the enemy in. Mine was to keep the enemy out. The comparisons were while I was deployed. I did 3 tours, and it is very different from being home in garrison. True, in garrison is just like living a normal life, but while you're deployed, you're often wondering, is this my last day alive? What is my family doing, thinking, experiencing while I'm out here? You've got to wait in line for the phone, if you even get to use the phone. The internet was a rare option to even send an email. So don't write how silly it is until you've sat down with your best friend, thankful he made it out alive, and he's thankful you did too. Story 11. I had to completely change my sense of time. I agree with all the people who said they ate super fast, but then we would slowly walk back from the chow hall, any excuse for a few minutes more outside. I made sure I never consolidated enjoyable things. If I had a snack, I ate it and concentrated on it. If there was something good on TV, I watched it. Now, I'll snack while I watch a movie because there aren't enough hours in the day, but on the inside, I was trying to make hours and days go away. I've got a good job now, and nice, respectable friends, but I still react to confrontational situations more quickly, decisively, and efficiently than they do. I'm able to pull back at the last minute, but it's pretty clear that violence is not a tool in their arsenal. I think in the real world, 90% of winning a fight is being willing to fight in the first place. Most people realize very quickly once a fight starts that they don't actually want to fight. Story 12. I spent 72 months in prison for a tragic car accident that I had caused. After I was released, I kept telling my wife exactly what I was doing without her asking. She thought it was funny at first, but after a few weeks of it, she was starting to get bothered. Story 13. Not an ex-con, but my stepdad has been in and out of prison for the majority of his life. He always said that whenever he gets out of prison, you're so used to it being loud all the time that when he got home, he couldn't sleep because it was so quiet. My friend, who did a few years, had to sleep with infomercials turned up quite loud just to get to sleep at night. Always thought he was just accustomed to sleeping with the TV on. Now it makes sense. Story 14. Dude I work with said for the first little bit after getting out, he would take a leg out of his pants when he'd shit. Not sure how common that was. Dude's a fighter though, so maybe that had something to do with it. Story 15. Not me, but a guy who worked for me. When things were very busy, I would often get carry-out lunch for everyone and bring it back to the workplace. This one guy would eat a cheeseburger and french fries in 2 minutes. Wow. Once I asked him why he ate so quickly. He said, "Well, Nobs Fargma, I spent 7 years in a federal prison, and if you didn't eat your meal in 10 minutes, you didn't get anything. That 10 minutes often included the time it took standing in line to get your food." Okay then. I never said anything to him about it after that. Story 16. I got out 2 years ago, and I cannot for the life of me shake my aggressive posturing. That's all prison is. Being hyper-vigilant, and I would argue worse yet, always appearing indifferent. Like you could be kicking it with your friends, laughing, watching TV, but then even the slightest misphrasing of something, or a sudden movement, will shift the whole mood of the room at a drop of a dime. So whatever emotion you display has to be instantly shut off, and on a moment's notice you have to be booted and suited. I would return to my unit on occasion, and there would be blood smeared on the walls from a fight I missed. You didn't look at it. Eyes forward, indifferent. Emotion is weakness. And though I was secretly panicking, I had to bury and put on as a cold motherfucker. I got in one fight. We beat the shit out of each other in the gym area, and if you judged by other people's responses, it was like nothing was happening at all. Many quietly walked away, while others just stood there emotionless. If it had gone south for me, I could have been killed in front of 250 people, and nobody would have said or done jack shit. That is true loneliness which few people in the first world truly understand. If I got a bad fever in bed at night, which I did several times, even though there were 6 bunks in my cramped cell, I could have died in my sleep, and the guards would have only noticed at count. There were 12 guards on duty for 1,500 inmates. Think about that. If someone wanted to fuck with you, you'd be hamburger meat before a guard showed up. So that's the way it was. High tension all the time. Mad respect for everyone. Stay jacked as block and walk shoulders straight on the yard. In the weight area, I've seen John Cena looking swastika-tatted Aryan motherfuckers say please and thank you to Terry Crews looking black power guys, and they said the same back. That's simple. Your fortune was on your back and in the words you speak. Surprisingly, it equated to a smooth system. Once you earned your bones, respect, on compound, you just went through life like a robot and there was little friction, because everyone knew the smallest spark could ignite an inferno. So many stories I could tell. But the point is that raw, genuine brute value has no currency in the real world. People will scoff at you for the size of your thigh. I got cut off in line at the grocery store, people mean mug from across the room. All that shit is liable to get you hurt in prison, and it's hard to let go of this mentality once you're out. I am an educated white kid from a rural area, and I was thrown into a metropolitan prison. I didn't have an ounce of aggression in me before, and my wife, who has stuck by my side through it all, says I'm as gentle and kind as before, but my prison mannerisms stick around nonetheless. She's always telling me not to make such strong eye contact with people, not to cross my arms all the time. Ugh. It is subliminal, and I'm getting better at it, but it's been hard as hell to shake. Moral of the story, don't go to prison, kids, because you're only one poor decision away. Story 17. Making prison commissary-only food. Everyone around me thinks it is gross as hell to throw summer sausages, pickles, cheese, Doritos, Cheetos, and such into my ramen noodles, but good lord, I can't stop. And I've been out for 5 years. Story 18. My dad was in and out of jail when I was a child. When he was out, he used to make me jailhouse slams, basically whatever you can find to throw into ramen, as you said. I thought they were the best thing ever, and it was so cool because I ate what my dad ate, right? Fast forward about 12 years, and I'm telling my girlfriend this story, and she's just like, your dad fed you prison food? Story 19. My ex would sleep a certain way all the time. To me, it seemed like he was sleeping as if he was in a coffin, his arms crossed and wouldn't move the entire night for a couple months. He eventually broke that habit. Story 20. My uncle was in prison for a while, and we've talked a bit about his experience and how it affected him. He has a hard time not being violent. You'd never guess, since he mainly just sits in a corner and smokes, but he's been out for nearly 10 years and still always struggles with using his words. The guy cannot stand authority. He tells me that it's hard to listen to bosses when you know you're probably smarter and tougher than them. He knows most people feel this way, but he just can't ignore it. He's taken up professional carving, so he can be his boss. He's really in touch with our native roots now, on account of joining a First Nations gang in prison. Doesn't talk much. I don't know if that's because of prison, but he really only speaks if he wants to. Not the type of guy who likes to talk just to talk. Doesn't have a lot. He has some sort of abandonment issue or something, so he doesn't want a lot of things to miss if he goes back to prison. For all the time he doesn't spend with people, he's out with nature or doing something in the wilderness. I think it helps keep him calm and feel connected. Nice enough guy, but prison kind of fucked him up, and I think he's going to live his life being slightly disconnected with people. Story 21. Not an ex-con, but judging by a few guys I've worked with, taking extreme offense at the word goof or goofy being used in their presence. It is apparently a prison term primarily in Canada that refers to child molesters and killers, etc. in prison. You definitely don't want that name attached to you. Still, pretty weird to have a dude blow up just because you said something they were working on looked a bit goofy and needed to be fixed. Story 22. Having your head on a swivel, protecting your personal property in an obsessive manner, and sizing everyone up. When I was locked up, I always knew what was going on 360 degrees around me. Only the last unit I was in had lockers with actual locks, so before that I had to protect my commie, paperwork, and books all the time. Most people would fight you to take your shit because that is the respectful way to do it, but cat burglars are the worst. They sneak around and take shit. They get fucked up by everyone when they get caught. It is code. You want my shit? Come get it. Not sneaking around and stealing it. I've been out for almost a year and a half, but I still constantly size people up, no matter where it is. Grocery store, Walmart, walking down the street. I still analyze each person and figure out my best course of action if we have to fight. Story 23. I've been out for 8 years and I still eat like a dog. Most prisons give you 30 minutes for your meal, but that includes the walk from your cell block to the chow hall, waiting in line and finding a seat. Normally, by the time I actually get a piece of food in my mouth, I've already got a CO yelling over my shoulder to hurry up. It's really annoying going out to eat with people and gobbling up your meal, only to be stuck watching normal people eat for 20 minutes. Story 24. My friend once told me he got hooked on watching news channels and crappy daytime television. He said he also enjoyed listening to AM radio now, even though he knows specific podcasts exist that are more tailored to him. He killed himself 3 years ago after getting a 20-year sentence just 1 year after getting out. At 18, he served a little over a year in prison for moving marijuana, got out, violated parole, and got caught moving mass amounts of marijuana and other things like breaking into homes and petty theft, which was going to send him back for at least 15 years. After the jig was up, he had a while where he was allowed to stay at home, where he shot himself with a 9mm pistol in the head. He survived the initial shot, but later died 2 days after going to the hospital. Was a great friend and knew him since elementary school. Top of our graduating class in high school. Just too much exposure to the wrong people. Story 25. I knew of a guy who got out after 15 years. He had to call a friend to come and let him out of his apartment. They'd go out, do some shopping or whatever, and then his friend would lock him up for the night. Dude could not work doors himself without a rational fear. He did get better after a few months, but I hear he still has trouble doing things independently. Story 26. When my dad got out of prison, 10 plus years, we nicknamed him Martha Stewart because he was such a clean freak. His home looks like an IKEA catalog. He has glass containers for his shoes. He wakes up early to iron, wash, and scrub everything. When I lived with him for a year, I was grounded so many times over leaving water drops in the sink. Story 27. I was released at the end of November after 3 years, and my biggest adjustment is grocery shopping. In prison, jail, you typically can only go to the canteen once a week, and it isn't like just walking into your local grocery store. You have to write all your items down in advance, so if you forget something, you have to wait another week to get it, or if you're lucky, buy the item off another inmate. So it is still weird adjusting to being able to go get groceries, hygiene items, etc. whenever I need them.